Hey friends, it's Liv, Chief Food Wizard at Apocalypse. Today I have something special for you. Fall is officially here, but summer seems to be refusing to leave. Sound familiar? Maybe there was a ballot mix-up or something. I'm going to protest my right to enjoy all things spice and everything nice tomorrow, but for today, I'm happy to soak up the dying warmth of summer. What better way to celebrate an unseasonably warm day than with a bowl of homemade ice cream? This particular ice cream is well worth the celebration because it tastes incredibly indulgent, but is surprisingly good for you. It's totally allergy-friendly, as it's vegan, gluten-free, nut-free, and soy-free. It's easy to make, and you might have all the ingredients on hand right now. If you've never tried banana and ice cream before, you're missing out. By whizzing out frozen bananas in a food processor or a blender, you can create an incredible ice cream taste and texture. You won't believe how good it tastes, especially when you add in something you love to eat to flavor it. So your mix-in options are pretty much endless. Think delicious things like maple syrup, nut or seed butter, crushed nuts, cocoa powder, chocolate chips, shredded coconut. Today's recipe is super simple but tastes insanely good. I named today's recipe Nutty But Ice Cream because it tastes like peanut butter ice cream but has absolutely no nuts or ice cream ingredients in it at all. It's healthy enough that you could eat it for breakfast. Best of all, you make it in minutes with just 4 ingredients. So let's make some, shall we? Remember friends, we're all in this together. Stay cool, especially when something big, bright, and orange refuses to leave. Stay healthy, stay safe, stay frosty. Okay, let's talk ingredients. You'll need 2 or 3 frozen bananas, about 4 tablespoons of a nut or seed butter, like pumpkin seed butter, which is what I'm using today, some liquid sweetener, I used maple syrup, some nice tasting salt, so I used pink salt. And that's it. So let's start by making the nut or seed butter swirl. You're going to need the nut or seed butter that you have. You're only going to use about half of it, so 2 tablespoons. It's very, very thick, and we're going to make it thinner with the texture of a very thick caramel. So I'm going to add that to a small bowl. And I'm going to add about half of my maple syrup, so this is about 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. Then I'm going to add a little bit of pink salt. I used about 4 cranks. This would be a good pinch. And now I'm going to mix it together. Now this might seem weird at first. The liquid and the fats will sort of separate in an unpleasant looking way. But the more you stir, the more cohesive the mixture will become. So just keep at it until you have a uniform, thick, smooth, caramelly looking mixture. So thinner than something like a store-bought peanut butter, but not as thick as something like hummus. Now, you can add more maple syrup or whatever sweetener you're using if you find that the mixture is too thick. Sometimes it will get quite thick and it's just hard to tell exactly how much you'll need from the outset, but just add it a little bit at a time and keep stirring. So I've achieved the texture that I want, which is sort of like a thin nut butter. Now I'm going to make my nice cream. So I'm using a food processor today. You can use a blender, a high-speed blender, but you're going to need to add some liquid if you use a blender. I prefer the food processor because I love the texture that it creates for this nice cream recipe. It makes it almost like this whipped gelato texture. So I'm just adding all my bananas in, and now I'm going to pulse them and then blend them until they create a very smooth whipped consistency. Don't get discouraged if your mixture looks chunky. That just means you haven't blended it enough yet. You have to keep at it. I like to scrape down the inside of the bowl once in a while as I'm mixing because little pieces of banana will get stuck in the crevices of the food processor. So you want to make sure that from time to time you stop and kind of get them out of there, put them back into the main part of the food processor, and then blend again. This ensures that your entire mixture will be smooth as silk and it won't have little chunks of banana that you didn't expect. So as you can see, the mixture is starting to form what almost looks like a dough. It's all pooling together and rolling around in a clump. Now, at this stage, it's really important to scrape down the sides and make sure that all of the banana is becoming the same texture, because you really don't want to end up with chunks of icy banana mixed in with your smooth, fluffy whip. So now you see that it's pulled away from that ball that it's formed, and it's sort of just created what looks like almost like hummus, to be honest. But yeah, so once it has kind of deflated and moved to the sides, you're pretty much golden. So you don't want to overmix it, you just want to get it to this stage where it just looks like a velvety, fluffy whip. Sort of like soft serve ice cream. Now to this, I'm going to up the flavor and the fat content by adding some nut butter. So I used about 2 tablespoons of pumpkin seed butter. You could use a peanut butter or an almond butter or any nut butter or seed butter that you like. Then you add in a couple tablespoons of maple syrup. This will sweeten it out. Because the nut butter is so savory, you do want that element of sweetness to make it taste like ice cream. And then a little bit of pink salt. I used about 4 cranks again. Again, because this is a nut butter. So nut butters love salt, and my nut butter is unsalted, so I wanted to make sure that I have that salty flavor. However, if you added a salted nut butter, you should taste your mixture before adding in the salt to make sure that you don't make it too salty. And now I just want to blend this until the nut butter is completely melted into the ice cream and is completely difficult to see. You don't want to bite into chunks of just the straight nut butter because it will be a bit unpleasant. So from time to time, stop, scrape down the sides because it likes to cling to the sides, and then start blending again. And you only want to blend this to the point where it's well incorporated. You don't want to overblend because the more you blend bananas, the more bitter they become. So you really want to make sure you don't overwork this. So just to show you what you're working with, this now looks like kind of a fluffy, soft serve texture. Now what we're going to do is put it together and freeze it. So I've got my caramelly nut butter swirl, and I have a very, very tight sealing container that's suitable for the freezer. So this is a plastic container that actually kind of suctions shut and locks. And what I'm going to do is put a third of my banana mixture into the base of this and spread it out to the sides, trying to make sure that I get rid of any air bubbles because those are going to create pockets of crystallization, which you don't want. So I just spread it out to the sides and I press down gently, just to make sure that I'm not overworking the banana mixture, but I am just spreading it out evenly and getting rid of any of those air pockets. Now you can see my caramel has a very, very thick texture, but it's still sort of like a nut butter in its runniness. It's a wonderful texture, I love it. So now I'm going to add in just like dollops of it, and if you know who the artist Jackson Pollock is, he sort of does the splatter artwork. You want to basically just do that, like you want it to be swirled and spattered, but you don't want it to be like a layer. You want it to just be kind of like, some areas have bigger chunks, some have little swirls. Surprise in every bite. So now I'm going to add another third of the banana mixture over the top and spread it out to the sides once again. And now I'm going to add more of my nut butter swirl, again another third. And I'm doing the same technique, so again that Jackson Pollock drizzle spatter. And using an extra spoon like I'm doing here just kind of makes the nut butter easier to work with. Now I'm adding the final third of my banana ice cream mixture and spreading it completely over the top so it's evenly distributed. And now the last of my nut butter swirl, just as sort of a decoration on the top. There you have it, it's ready for the freezer. So now we're going to seal it up, make sure that it is completely sealed, lock it, and put it in the freezer. I'm going to freeze this for 1 to 2 hours. This just makes it more scoopable. You could eat it the way it is right now though. So this is 2 hours later. I have had it in my deep freezer. And let me just get the lid off. What the God damn this. Why? Oh. Oh god. Oh god. Oh. Delicious accidents. And there you have it, guys. This is ready to scoop. So I'm just gonna use an ice cream scoop and get my little serving dish. Oh, this looks so good. So now I just do what you do with ice cream, scoop it up. It scoops beautifully after 2 hours. It really looks like ice cream. And that's thanks to the nut butter, because the nut butter gives it the fat that it needs to freeze properly without turning into a rock hard disc. Beautiful. There you have it, guys. That is my Nutty Button ice cream. Enjoy!